Hey guys, it's good to be alive, right? I'm glad you're alive and you're doing well from wherever in the world you're watching. And I feel privileged to um, have your time, your most precious resource. So I appreciate you watching. And I think I was around 19 or 20 years old when the movie Down to Earth by Chris Rock came out. I think it came out 2002 or 2003, some time ago. And if you've never watched the movie Down to Earth, it's a pretty crazy, bizarre movie, and it's about the movie is produced, directed, and stars Chris Rock. Anyway, so the premise of the movie is simple. The character played by Chris Rock is a struggling comedian. So in the movie, the character dies early, just early on in the movie. I think he was run over by a bus or a train or something. But so his character dies. The comedian dies, goes to heaven, and the manager in heaven is surprised because he was like, "What are you doing here? This is not your time." And so it was agreed that he would be sent back to Earth, down to Earth. But the problem, however, was that his body on Earth was already ground beef. I think it was run over by a big bus and all that, or a truck or something crazy. So they had to find another body for his soul to exist in. The problem was there was no there was no available body. The only available body they could find was that of an old um, rich white guy. So pending on when they get a suitable body, he would have to make do with this one. Now, his soul is conscious. He knows that he is this, comedian, this black comedian. But the problem is there's a disconnect because he doesn't remember that he's in an old white body. Anyway, so he goes to do perform in a comedy club, and he maybe because he doesn't know what his outer shell looks like. So he made a joke, a very crazy joke that was funny. And I was watching this movie with my some of my siblings and some of my friends, So he made a crazy joke that everybody in the black club like shirked or whatever. And the joke was this: he said, a white man dies and leaves a will, a black man dies and leaves a bill. And the moment he said that a white man dies and leaves a will, a black man dies and leaves a bill, everybody around me just bursted out laughing, And I was about to laugh too, but it's crazy how the mind works because in a fraction of a second, your mind can travel half of the universe. They say that before someone dies, they actually see their lives flashing ahead of them, you know. And just as I was about to laugh at that joke, a white man dies and leaves a will, a black man dies and leaves a bill, I did a mental check in nanoseconds. And it occurred to me that my great grandfather left nothing for my grandfather. My grandfather, whom I knew then, not so long, but my grandfather left nothing for my father, at least nothing commercially viable. And based on the trajectory that we were on, numbers don't lie, results don't lie. I knew that my father would not leave anything for me or my siblings. And it was at that moment that I realized that if I do not do something about this, I will just continue the pattern. Some people say it's generational curses. Nothing like generational curses. All you have is generational choices. People that decide and say, you know what, I'll be the next millionaire in my family, and that person is you. And at that point, I realized that if I don't do something about this pattern, I would also leave nothing for my children. And just as I was about to laugh, I processed all this And, I kept quiet. Now, what am I trying to say? King Solomon, the richest person ever in the universe, for, I think economists estimate him to be worth around 2.3 trillion. He had a quote that said, "A righteous woman leaves inheritance for her children's children. A righteous man leaves inheritance for his children's children." I want you to really think about that. The wealthiest person in the world knew that one of the best legacies you can ever have is to leave something for your children's children. Wow. So at that point, I decided that whatsoever I do, whatsoever it is that I'm doing, I will ensure that I leave something for my children's children so that they do not struggle. Because do you understand that you can't really think lofty thoughts if you're struggling? You can't think wellness if you're on welfare. They say Thomas Edison tried 10,000 times before he got the electric light bulbs. What if you were poor? Imagine how many times he would need to test out those filaments. Imagine if you were poor. So, leaving inheritance for your children's children just ensures that you do not continue the circle of struggle, the cycle of struggle. It is very important. It is very important. And sometimes when people when people think about, oh, you're leaving inheritance for your children's children, what about your children, and I learned something from my mother's friend years ago. I don't know what discussion we're having, and she said something to me. She said, um, Victor, if you raise your children, you can spoil your grandchildren. But if you spoil your children, you will raise your grandchildren. And so when Solomon says a righteous person leaves inheritance for his children's children, his grandchildren, it's with the notion that your parents have already done the job. Think about how crazy it is for some of us that have kids, how crazy it is when your parents spoil your children. Like things you would never get away, like 3% of the things you'll never get away with, your parents, your children can get away with anything. And why do they do that? Because they know that you got this. They know that they've raised you right. They have left a legacy of, integrity, character, and hopefully wealth. And now they can relax and, spoil the little ones. I remember once when years ago, when my kids were still under 6, and my mom was around for Christmas, and I don't know what my first one was. She was misbehaving, being naughty, and all I just did was verbally threaten this little girl with spanking. That's all I did. The speed at which my mom came to this little girl's rescue was biblical. And if you know anything about Nigerian moms, they don't mess around. And she was like, "Don't you dare touch my grandchild." I'm like, "Mom, did you see what she did?" And my mom was like, "Oh, you have grown old enough to question the validity of my eyes, right?" I was like, "No." And she was like, "Is she your grandchild?" I was like, "Mom, she's my child." She's like, "No, is she your grandchild?" I'm like, "No." Say, "Don't you dare touch my grandchild." And I was there thinking, isn't this the same witch that beat the Fred Krueger out of us when we were growing up just to straighten us out? But the truth was, it kind of felt nice. It kind of felt nice because, my mom was, earlier on telling my wife and I how good we were doing in raising the kids. So A righteous woman leaves inheritance for her children's children. A righteous man leaves inheritance for his children's children. This is a legacy that you can leave for your children's children. And you can start anytime, no matter where you are. There's a saying that if you don't come from a rich family, make sure a rich family comes from you. Or if you were born poor, it's not your fault. But if you die poor, that's on you. You know, it is your job to start leaving a legacy for your little ones, leaving a legacy of not just righteousness, but of wealth for your little ones. And sometimes it could be, you could start by, I'm not a financial advisor, but you could start by life insurance. Do you understand? Life insurance to ensure really that you don't leave a bill for your children and your children's children. Life insurance. Do you understand? Um, Getting a down payment for a house and appreciating assets, starting a business, starting a franchise, or my favorite, all of the above, so that we do not continue the pattern of struggle. So that we do not continue the pattern of struggle. So every single day, I wake up with this same knowledge that I am righteous. And the definition of righteousness is not a religious one. It is one person that makes sure that the next generation after me has it better. And there are billionaires out there. People quote billionaires that say, "Oh, we're not going to leave billions for our children, or else they'll spoil them and all that." And when people quote that to me, the first thing I say is, "Are you a billionaire?" At least make 1 billion or make 100 million before you say that. And you're not in their pockets. Nobody wants their children to suffer. They all have their wealth, hidden in trust that is so trust funds that are so airtight the governments can't even touch it. They have investments in different things. So I tell people, you can't say that you don't know what is in their pockets. You don't know the investments. You don't even know the education that they've given to their children. No one wants their child to suffer. So at least be wealthy before you make that statement. So that's all I just wanted to say today, that, a righteous woman, a righteous man leaves inheritance for his children's children. You can start today. You can start today no matter where you are. And even if you've started, kudos, you can do better. You can do better. You can leave a legacy in your will and say, "Oh, I want to support this foundation, and I want to." It shouldn't be just your children, of course. Support the world around you. I see some of the amazing things that John D. Rockefeller, Carnegie, and all these guys that have trust that they've left. They built libraries, schools, gardens, research facilities. It is all legacy for everyone's children's children. So it's not just enough to be about me, myself, and I. You won't get it perfect. Nobody gets it perfect, but we can try. We can try. We can always start from somewhere. But just don't forget, a righteous man, a righteous woman, which you are, will leave an inheritance for not just their children, but their children's children's children, and for other people's children. There is no success without a successor. There is no there is no point in living you if in death, you cannot have an impact. It occurred to me one day when I was on my way back home. I was listening to audiobooks, and it just occurred to me that a bunch of the people that I was listening to had one thing in common. They were all dead. you know, a lot of them. I was like, wow, Wayne Dyer, Neville Goddard, you know, a lot of people. And I was like, wow, how crazy it is to have impact from the grave. And that is the legacy that we all should have. That is the legacy that you should have. That is the legacy that we should encourage ourselves to have. So that's all I wanted to say. Take care. God bless. See you.